Hi, John. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
It is. You've already been a blast to talk to you the last couple of minutes. We
I
kind of
know,
did a
we've been
quick
having a great time
intro before
already.
I hit record. So, do you want to tell us about you?
Sure. My name is Jon Enge. I am a writer and a director. Produced a bunch of my own stuff. Started writing screenplays in 1999. Did a couple of short films here or there over the next 10 years. And then in about 2009, 2010, saw people were making action videos on YouTube and was like, I can do that. And I moved from Orange County to LA, gave up my job, my career as a graphic designer at the age of 38. So, it's never too late, unless you're on your deathbed, maybe. But moved to LA, moved in with a bunch of guys way younger than me, and we just started making films every day. We were doing something creative. We were putting out stuff every 2 weeks, and that lasted a good 5 years. And then I got hired to run other channels and all of that. And then the past couple of years, I've been transitioning to TV.
Yeah. And I saw that one of your shorts is nominated.
Um,
Overeater?
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a short. That's a pilot.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, even better.
I originally wrote it as a short and then showed it to a friend of mine who was like, it's really great, but it's 30 pages. You need to chop it down to at least, 15 or under to get programmed as a short film. And I started doing that. And so I talked to another one of my friends who's a TV writer, and he was like 30 pages. Do you think it has another 15 in it? Because that sounds like pilot to me.
Ooh.
And I started shaking because I was like, oh my God, it could be. Yeah. But that's there've been a lot of people responding positively to that script, in ways that script sat on my hard drive for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was like, it's too personal, it's too niche. People aren't going to get it. It's about a guy in his mid 30s who is a compulsive overeater. He that's a, what do you call it? Eating disorder, where you overeat instead of undereat or purging. And so he's dealing with life by doing that and all this stuff. And just, it's kind of how he has broken all of his friendships and all of that at the beginning. So episode 1 is him hitting his bottom, having a cardiac incident and having to go to the hospital, which is really, really rough scene. Because when you are 350 pounds, they can't use a regular stretcher. You will make it collapse. So they need the big guy stretcher, which can take up to 45 minutes to get there, to 2 hours. I did a bunch of research on that because most of this is very much my story.
Yeah.
I did not have a cardiac incident, but I know people who did. But yeah, and so the first one is him kind of getting to his breaking point and then asking for help. And then the rest of the series is about him trying to do better.
That's the stuff that people connect with, though. And I was smiling because you said, oh, it's very niche. Well, so is Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, totally.
But this is less niche. I think more people, there's more things within this that regular people are going to connect with than Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, it's everybody I've sent it to has been like, this is great.
It sounds great.
I will send it to you once we're
do it. Yeah. And I'm glad they said add 15 more pages instead of take away 15 more pages, because taking away is so much harder than adding.
Oh man. Yeah. I was telling my buddy, my TV writer buddy, I'm like, I'm having to cut this thing down, but I'm cutting the heart out of it. And it's just breaking me. And he was like, make it longer.
Don't force it.
And then another TV writer friend of mine, he's like, I really like it. I don't see how it's a series. Did you think about making it into a feature? And I was like, oh, I don't know how this is a feature. I originally just wrote it. I'm very much put it into plot points plan out each scene, put it into an outline, and then go to pages kind of person. And this was when I was just like, I'm just gonna write it. And every time I wrote, I felt like I had just, because it's so personal, like all these things happened to me, and like it just made me raw every time. And I felt like it was helping me. It was almost like therapy to write this thing, which then I think that was also another one of the reasons I didn't want to show it to people, was it was so personal. What if they don't like it? What if they don't buy it? What if?
Yeah.
And then once lockdown happened and I started like doing all of these Zooms with other writers, and I became close with some of them, and I was like, all right, anybody who wants to read this, let me know and I'll send it to you. And like all of the feedback I got was like, this is amazing, no notes. And I was like, no notes? That's crazy. Wow. And so I started sending it out to other people who have like, been in the industry longer, and they're like one of them was like, I could give you notes, but it's great. And a couple of the people I did get notes from them were like, honestly, this is nitpicky little stuff. Like
exactly.
If I was going to improve anything, it would be this stuff, but you honestly don't need to do anything. This is great.
Yeah. I love that they notice that, or that they acknowledge that, where it's like, it's just nitpicking. Like, you don't need this, because so many people just nitpick, and it's like, you're exhausting.
It can be exhausting. Nice. Really.
So and you can either answer this collectively, or you can separate between being a writer and also being a director. But as a writer and or a director, what do you hope that audiences notice? Because I know you put a ton of detail into the writing. You put your heart into the writing. Directing, I know it's kind of a different animal, because you're paying attention to everything. Position, movement, how something is said, more than I even know, I'm sure. So what do you hope that the audience notices?
I hope
and that's a huge question, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's always about the emotion, and it's like the little, in my writing, I like to put in a lot of I like to put stuff in the action lines that can be acted instead of having people say it out loud. I'll actually do a pass, because my first drafts are always super long, because I write out all the subtext, everything everybody wants to say, in a nice and perfect world where everybody is really nice and actualized. But and then I go through and I do the lie pass, where I'm like, okay, now everybody's lying or talking around what they want and everything, and things get shorter and shorter and shorter. And a lot of that stuff ends up going into little looks. And the things that I really want people to notice are those like human moments. Like if you watch, like, my directing style is a lot of like, I don't do a lot of coverage where the camera is offline from the eyes. I want it to be as close as I can get to the eyes, because this is where drama happens, and like from the side, there's reasons to shoot there, and it has to be intentional. But like most of the time, like, I want to see that emotion that's happening and the relationship that's happening between the two people on screen. And so it goes from like, I make my money as an editor. So I go from like writing it to directing it to editing it. So there's a lot of stuff that happens on when I go to pages, that I'm hoping will come across in the final thing. And a lot of times, this is why they have reshoots.
And voiceovers.
Yeah. Well, you get a reshoot because you're like, for instance, years ago, like, we'd been doing our thing for about a year. We raised $10,000 to do this like Indiana Jones style action adventure movie. We went out to the desert for 3 days and shot this whole thing, and it probably should have been 5 days. But was what we had for a budget. So, and we ended up chopping out a bunch of stuff from the first act because once we got there, we were like, it feels like it's too broad. It's too comedy. The problem is that set up the relationship between the two main characters so that you care about them through all of the action and stuff, and you want them to get away together. And then when like the big twist happens at the end, you're like brokenhearted. But because we removed all that stuff and didn't replace it with some new character things, when people get to the end, they're like, well, that was fun, instead of like, oh. Yeah, so it's all about relationships. His character is only like shown through relationships, I guess. And I think that's the end of my answer.
Cool. So you talked about the project that you've got right now, the pilot, called Overeater. Are there other stories that you're hoping to be able to tell?
In that world, or
no, like any world, like any perspectives, any points of view, any human conditions.
I have probably like 6 scripts that are like ready to go out at any moment. The one that I'm super duper obsessed with and won't leave me alone is called 7 Scoundrels. And it's about a group of criminals who get recruited by an intergalactic spy agency to go out and take out like the people that they used to work with. So like everything's a kind of a little morality play, but the main character in that, Kit, right? She's just my favorite thing. Because like at the beginning, she is, and this is in fact, I've got like a poster that I had made right here on my monitor, but also I have a printout of it right there. And like,
is it the image of the crew for that project?
Yeah.
That's on your website?
It's not that same one.
Okay.
It's a different one.
Okay.
But yeah, and it's she had some bad stuff happen to her. And like she was working for this smuggling syndicate, and this is all before the pilot, and screwed up on the job, and they sent her boyfriend to go out and take care of it. She lost her arms and her legs because of this. And her best friend took her to the doctor. They got replaced with bionics, but she doesn't feel like a real person. So it's like her trauma, right?
Okay.
And that she can feel and see every day. And like her arms are always cold and her scars hurt where they attach to her body. And so for me, that like goes into my experience as an addict, right? So I'm addicted to eating so much food that I don't have to feel anything. Okay. She feels less than human. She wants to feel more human. So she's doing all these self-destructive behaviors, but she's also trying to like track down that dude and get back at him. But she's a fucking mess and she can't keep any of her shit together. So at the beginning of the pilot, she basically abandons one of her crew and he gets shot and killed. And then her best friend, who's the pilot, she could have saved but didn't. She abandons her. And like, so my stuff tends to be about somebody who has completely ruined every relationship in their life. And now she's like being shown this kind of better world by her mentor, Agent Astrid Dillinger. Thank you, Tiffany. Who brings her in, kind of takes her under her wing, and she's like, "You're going to be the point person on this, and you're like, I believe in you." And it's the first time anyone's believed in her in so long that she kind of wants to show that she can do it and prove to herself that she can. But she also thinks that she's a piece of shit. So it's a rough thing, and so but I think it's what makes the I think it's what makes the series really good, is that she has a long way to go to love herself.
Yeah. So it sounds like she's got plenty of external antagonists, but she's also got a bunch of internal strife too.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fodder.
Yeah, and her best friend that she abandoned is also the pilot of this ship. So, because in the original conception, it was like, oh, they're best friends, and her best friend is in love with her, and there's nothing that she could do that could possibly break that. And as I was writing this, I realized what was about to happen was Kit was going to leave Talon to the cops in a crushed car that she could have just ripped open with her bionic arms in order to save her own ass.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, accept that. That is the thing that breaks their friendship. And it's going to have to repair throughout the course of the episodes.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so a lot of the rewriting on that pilot was making sure I had those threads woven in.
Yeah. I like that you are giving them a real solid reason to have a story, though. Because there's a lot of shows that I've watched where you're kind of like, how'd they even get here? And there's no background. Like, it's not, it takes a long time to get invested because you don't have anything happening at the beginning that explains anything.
Yeah, which is like I was talking about before with that True Adventure, Key to Eternity. That was the pulpy thing that we did, and where we pulled out from the front and forgot to, and like neglected it. I have the tendency, so there is a whole key point in there that my character has this lucky coin, and my business partner was like, wrote this line in there and is like, boy, nothing bad could ever happen to me because I have a lucky coin. And I was like, oh yeah, that's way too on the nose. And I just cut it completely. We got to the edit and it wasn't there. Nobody understood what that coin was when they see it at the very end. Spoilers. And and so we had to go and do a reshoot in our parking lot and fake it to be out in the desert, which is actually one of the effects shots that I'm most proud of because I forget that it's an effects shot. But yeah, so like, and I like to start, I like a hot start, you know, I don't want to start with two people sitting around talking about their relationship. I want to get an idea of that relationship as they're moving through something. And so my opening scene, my opening act really is, they're on a job and she's like, you know, injecting herself with painkillers and drinking champagne and just being cocky in front of this guy and is about ready to deck him before they even get any of their stuff. And like Talon's in her ear on the roof in the car and is like, hey, listen to my voice. Listen to my voice. It's all going to be okay, baby. It's all going to be okay. And once I put that in there, I stopped getting the note of, I don't care about these people.
Oh.
In the opening scene.
Okay.
And it was just that one little moment because I tried to write scenes that preceded this, but it was like, no, I want to come in and I want it to be fun and cool. I don't want to start in like a hotel room, you know. That's,
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so compared to like, you know, average bear like me, forget C19, but as you're moving through the world as a writer and a creative person, what are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you observing that's giving you ideas just in the world?
That's a good question. What do I see in the world? I think it's people, relationships. Like, I love watching people's expressions. Like, as a director, as a storyteller, like I love to watch the stories that people's faces tell. So if there's like somebody sitting at a table and they're checking their watch and they're looking over and stuff, and then you see somebody come around the corner, that person's reaction is like crack to me. It's like, do they go, hey, you're finally here, or hey, it's nice to meet you, or like, are they on a date, are they old friends getting together, are they there to talk about something very serious, or like, do they not want to see that other person? So there's a lot of that, but then there's also like, I live in downtown Los Angeles, and so like I cruise around. I've got some like Dean Martin playing on my headphones, and I'm looking around at like all of this amazing architecture, and I don't. It's an interesting thing. I'm not really sure where ideas come from, but it's just every now and then something will just like, oh, I have to write that down.
Yeah.
It's important to fill up those gas tanks.
Yeah. So with writing and being creative, are there any habits that you have that you find really helpful?
Oh, helpful habits?
Well, yeah. Like I've got
very unhelpful habits.
Yeah, like I've got some experience writing, mostly like related to music, but I know that there's a big difference between consciously being in that creative space and trying to be aware and trying to maintain the habits, and then completely abandoning it and not having those creative ideas pop up anymore.
Yeah, probably my favorite habit was I had a couple of friends who during the pandemic started a writers cafe that meets every morning from 8 to 10 Pacific. So like getting up and writing for those 2 hours, we all chat with each other for a little while, and then a 40-minute sprint, and then a little break, and then a 40-minute sprint, and then we wrap it all up, say goodbye, and we'll see you tomorrow. And just showing up every day is amazing. And like, I can't make it every day, but like as much as possible, like something that I would have marinated on for like 3 months, I figured out in a few days because I was showing up, doing the work, and that's great. And then with the pandemic going on and like all the different things going on inside our bodies, I found that I couldn't wake up that early anymore, early enough to do that, and certainly not early enough to be of any use. Like my brain was just not on at all. So I'm hoping that changes. But also I've been pretty much stuck in this room. This is where I write. This is where I edit. I found that I got a laptop and started going out onto the couch in the common space here, and like having a TV tray, and like if I go out there, that helps me. And then because I have ADHD, eventually everywhere becomes too familiar. So breaking that up and going out to a coffee house or a restaurant or something like that, just as long as I'm not here all the time, because I will like just sit here and scroll Twitter.
Yeah. I think it's the habits we have, the routines we have, that if you don't change your scenery, you just stick with those same habits. Like if I am at my computer, I could just pop open Spider Solitaire, and there goes 5-10 minutes.
Oh yeah.
So it's like,
yeah, I have spent entire days just scrolling Twitter.
That was the cat jumping. Sorry. She just jumped like 4 feet from the window. She made it though.
That's good.
I know. It's terrifying, but it was good. Anyway.
Oh, I'm just having a cat.
She's fantastic. So, what are your guilty pleasures? Any more these days? Old movies? Dean Martin.
Dean Martin, yeah. In my 40s, I found that I've lost the guilt from all of my guilty pleasures.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Something to look forward to.
Yeah, absolutely. I still play World of Warcraft. You know, my ex got me into it years ago, and
Yeah.
I ran our guild, and I was the raid leader and stuff, and we did that for a while, and then eventually I was like, I'm spending like 30 hours a week in this game. If I took that time and put it into my writing career, imagine where I would be. And now I'm making a living as a writer. So,
Hey, what do you mean?
protection paladin.
Okay, yep. I usually go
Mhm.
cleric, Templar, that kind of paladin. I think is
Nice.
similar.
Nice.
Yeah.
My second character is a priest dwarf
Okay.
healer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Paladin's more like a warrior type, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, paladins, they can heal or they can tank. And then I have a warlock who just melts faces, and a healer.
Nice. I know gotta love the glass cannons. I started. I actually played Rift. It came out in 2011, and then
Okay.
I think Tryon sold the IP, and it's just getting parted out now. But the graphics were really cool. I did some progression rating in that. But yeah, I got into WoW for a little bit, and
Yeah.
played the whatever the clericy priest whatever it was, and yeah,
Yeah.
I did. I don't think I got past like level 20. But yeah, that stuff it's
It's a
designed to
lot.
keep you roped in, and I
Mhm.
want all the things. Yeah. So I kind of had to do the same thing you did, where it's like, okay, I got to reevaluate the opportunity cost.
Yeah, that's the thing, is it's like back in the day, like what made it so much fun was that our guild was mostly my real life friends, like the Renaissance Fair people. And so we just got to like kind of go haywire in our own guild, go at our own pace. And then eventually we all kind of like went off to do other things. So now I mostly just play on my own, which isn't nearly as fun. So I'll play for like an hour instead of 8,
Yeah.
which is much more manageable. And most of the time, like I think the past couple of weeks, I just haven't even logged on at all, except that now it's Christmas. It's Winter Veil. So I went and did some fun Winter Veil stuff and put a sweater on my characters. And
Yeah. When we were working on progression, I'd have like alarms set for when it was raid night.
yes.
We would
Oh
have
my God. Yeah.
Friday nights. We would also do a drunk raid night. I miss that.
Drunk raids are so much fun. We would do like, because we were in Wrath of the Lich King, which came out just after uh Burning Crusade. So we would go back and do Burning Crusade one that
Yeah.
like we had
Yeah.
just broken against so many times, and it took us so long to get through it. So we would go back and do Drunken Karazhan runs. And yeah, it was so much fun.
Yeah. It had to be something we were way over leveled for, or we knew the cheats, like everybody's stack, because we were so dysfunctional and distracted that your expectations had to be really low. Like if I couldn't
Oh, yeah.
heal with hitting one button, we were wiping.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. My other the thing that's been like a guilty pleasure for me my whole life and that I've hidden has become suddenly like really cool in the last few years, is Dungeons and Dragons. I have been a dungeon master since I was like 10 years old. That's when some of my first writing happened, was creating my own worlds. I created my own system, and it was like a post-apocalyptic thing, you know, back in the 80s, and when that was like the coolest. And then yeah, I started running 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons a few years back, and I moved to Minnesota for 2 years, and started playing with some guys back there and really loved it. And then when the pandemic broke, I was actually like, I'm going to have the worst depression in the world if I don't run as many Dungeons and Dragons games as possible. So I had like a Wednesday game, a Friday game, and a Sunday game.
Wow.
And that was a lot. It was too much. But eventually, like, you know, as these things do, Friday fizzled out. Sunday, people stopped being able to come, but I replaced that game with a streaming game. And then my Wednesday night group, my Musketeers, we're still going strong. In fact, just before this call, I was on with them because there's like all of this stuff happening in the characters. There's drama with the characters, not with the players, which is great.
That's probably the best situation.
Oh yeah,
The players are good.
absolutely nuts. Like the party splintered.
Yeah.
Two of the guys like went off in different directions, and the three women who were left were like, screw them both, we're going off. And I'm like, okay, well, you guys are the core party now.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Okay, so did you watch Game of Thrones at all? Are you involved in that? Did you read the books?
I watched. I haven't read the books.
Oh, okay. So how did you feel about the series finale?
The series finale. It's really interesting because a lot of people really, really hated the last season.
Yeah.
And I can understand why. It felt like it was very rushed. I was much more, I don't think I was as invested in it as some people were, because a lot of times I was like where people would be getting mad, I would be like, huh, that's an interesting choice. Okay. You know,
that makes sense.
When it ended, I was like, yeah, probably not how I would have ended it, but okay.
I think that's consensus. I read the books through 4 or 5, I'm forgetting. I don't remember which one was done and then which one he's been working on for what feels like 10 years, I'm pretty sure, which it's strange to me that they started working on the series before the books were even remotely close, knowing how long it took him to write them. And maybe that's just me not knowing film and television, but it seemed very strange. I read the books, and then there were just a lot of non sequiturs in those last few seasons, and it just even having read the books, so like, this makes no sense. I don't agree with this.
Well, I remember I ended up like binging the first 2 seasons because season 3 was coming up and we were running the YouTube channel and we wanted to make like, it's like whenever they're launching a new season of Game of Thrones, or whenever they launched a new season of Game of Thrones, there would always be like anything that was Game of Thrones related would get retweeted everywhere, make it on Otaku, and would go viral. So we wanted to have something in that group of stuff. And so I had to watch all of seasons 1 and 2 in like the course of a week. So I was editing in one monitor while Game of Thrones was playing in the other monitor, or like doing visual effects. And so I was like, God, this series, man, the tagline for this series should be, in a world where there is no hope, there is no hope. Just don't even bother. And I'm like,
and then they kill your favorite character.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's just like anybody who's any good at all just gets murdered terribly. Yes. In one of the most fantastical ways possible. And the last couple of seasons didn't feel like that.
No, yeah, I think rush is probably the best way to put it, because it was rough. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I know he wanted like 10 seasons. The writer wanted like 10 seasons. I don't know if that was necessary, but I don't know what's going on with the book, so I don't know. Yeah. But I mean, I would have thought a happy medium.
Here's what's going to happen: if he ends up finishing the books before he dies, he's going to completely change anything that happened in the TV series, because he saw it and went, "Oh, that didn't work at all." And then just like, oh, I'll just write something different. Yeah,
he's already made comments basically to that effect. And I kind of have to wonder, because I don't think we know what direction he gave the producers versus what they actually did. So I don't know if we can compare what was supposed to happen versus what did happen versus what's now going to happen in the book. So it's just kind of like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. Well, last season was like 6 episodes, and that's really rough. You're huge, epic series, the most popular TV series in history. And it really speaks volumes that like the most popular TV series in history is out of the popular zeitgeist. People don't talk about it anymore. They don't reference it except very niche things like, oh, that's really too bad. And I'm very curious about why it was only 6 episodes, because everybody who was starring in that movie suddenly or in that series, they had movie careers, they were getting on other TV shows, and it's like, was it producing stuff? Was it like, we can only get these people together this many times, or who knows?
I know there was something and I'm not sure how it compares to all the other actors, so I'm not sure if it was just them, but I know the producers, the two that ran it, I'm completely spacing on their names, but I think they had to get to another project, and it was a pretty big project. I don't remember what it was, but they were contracted for another significant project that they needed to get working on, which is why they weren't willing to let it go more than the seasons that they had. So,
Right.
but yeah, it's like people don't even talk about it.
Yeah. David Benioff and D.B. White.
Yeah, there we go.
And Dave.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, so they had something. It was a big, well-known project. I don't think it was Star Wars, but it was something as big as.
Right.
Yeah, it was significant. So, yeah, they were like, "We're out. Close enough."
Like looking at what they had. The chair. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So old school stuff. What are your favorites? What are your what made an impression on you?
my influences.
Yeah, influences.
I was a musician too, or I guess I still am, but I don't play as much as I used to.
Yeah. What'd you play?
Guitar, mandolin, accordion, and I'm a singer.
Are you a Gibson or a Fender guy?
I always had a Fender. I never had a Gibson. I would have bought a Gibson if I could have afforded it.
Yeah.
Like a Les Paul, I mean, those things just crank.
See, I would go a PRS now.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit different neck because I'm kind of more of a Fender player, so I'm used to just a little bit of a curve on the neck. The Gibsons are just a little bit too flat.
Yeah, I had a Fender Deluxe Strat Plus,
Okay.
which was like they only made for a little while in the 90s. It had like a rosewood fretboard, rolling nut, lockable keys, like really nice lace sensor pickups. Like it was the nicest thing. And I was like, it was probably the third or fourth guitar I'd ever owned. And it was just like playing butter. It was so nice.
Yeah.
But if I broke a string, the whole thing's out of whack.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
Like I would have to restring and retune on stage. And that was always... So it was like, I need to get a Telecaster because it doesn't have a landing bar. And then,
Yeah.
good times.
Or block it, make it a hardtail.
Yeah.
I love Telecasters too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got a really, really cool sound.
Yeah. I tend to go not twangy, though. So I tend to adjust the pickups. Like, I'm not going to get the Nashville version because I don't love the twang. I mean, I do love the sound of a Telecaster, but there's some that are just like, wow.
Very Dick Dale.
Yeah. Anyway, so you're into music and everything.
Writing, directing influences. I mean, early on, of course, Spielberg. Like everybody else in my generation, I watched Star Wars and was like, I want to do that. That was actually like one of the first movies that I saw in the theater, and I don't remember seeing it, but I remember the emotions.
Wow.
Yeah. So like when the big thing and the opening shot of the Star Destroyer coming overhead, I remember the wonder that it brought me. I was walking through Disneyland one day. We were going by Star Tours, which I've been on 1,000 times because I'm from Southern California, so we tend to go to Disneyland a lot. And I was like, whatever with that. And I heard R2-D2, and I literally went and like turned around and was like the kid in me, like that love for R2-D2. But what really cinched it was, I think it was Empire Strikes Back. There was a making of on TV, and that was the first time that I saw like the Millennium Falcon on an arm in front of a blue screen doing this whole movement thing. And I was literally sitting against the TV with my hands on the TV like fucking Poltergeist. And like my mom, what are you watching? Don't shush me. And like that was the day that I was like, I want to do that. So I stole my parents' 8mm camera, their like little Super 8 thing, and started making movies with my G.I. Joe figures and stuff, and trying to figure out how it all worked and like cuts and coverage. And so between that and then Indiana Jones,
Okay.
Like that's the movie that I actually remember seeing in the theater. I remember being in the theater because my brother and my and my dad had gone off on to see it first because my mom was like, well, you need to make sure that it's okay for him to see. He's very young. And they were like, it's fine. There's one part that he should cover his eyes for us, but this is my brother. He's like, I'll make sure he covers his eyes. And so we're in there and it's coming up in the climax where they open the ark and my brother's like, all right, close your eyes now. Now, mind you, that whole effects thing was groundbreaking at the time. Like we hadn't seen anything that was that complicated and cool. And so I'm like this.
And he doesn't
because
care.
there's also all these weird, crazy Ben Burt sounds, right? And so I'm like, got my eyes closed, and I'm like, I want to see what's going on, and I open it up just in time to see Tote's face melt off, and I was like, ah! I'm pretty sure it gave me nightmares, but to this day, it's like one of those things in your head. Like I want to have something that's that cool. And then more growing up, around the time that I started writing screenplays, I was super into Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
Like in the mid to late 90s, like Kevin Smith, Robert Rodriguez, Quentin Tarantino. I'm pretty sure I wrote some sort of Tarantino-like script that was terrible.
Yeah.
Because we all did.
Yeah, he's such a trip. Kevin Smith, though, is about the relationship, so I could definitely see you connecting with him.
Yeah.
In his work.
That was the thing, was I think like I watched Chasing Amy and I had just gone through a breakup, and like Chasing Amy is basically about getting good advice and reading it all wrong and fucking everything up. And like I loved the down ending. That was like my favorite thing about it. And it was like, I want to make people feel like I felt when I walked out of that movie. And then I like studied him for a really long time, and he talked about how his influences were John Hughes, and like I'm not sure where this advice came from, but it was basically like, if I wanted to make an Indiana Jones type movie, what I need to do is not watch Indiana Jones. I need to go back and watch the movies that influence that. Right?
Yeah.
So you got to go back to the well. You can't take the thing that somebody made as a tribute to that. You got to figure out what the source material is. Which I don't think I've ever done, but or at least on that one. But so yeah, I went back to the John Hughes stuff, and so the first script that I wrote that actually got people's attention was a high school. Well, I always called it a drama. Everybody who read it called it a comedy.
I saw your note about how you like to inject either comedy into drama or drama into comedy. It's your thing. Yeah.
I mean, comedy is just drama with funny.
There you go.
You know, because you got to have good drama if you want people to connect.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is why they say that comedy is the hard one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think they're both pretty freaking difficult if you're doing right.
Okay, so here's a completely unfair question.
Okay.
Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood, or Audie Murphy?
I'm not sure who Audie Murphy is.
Really? Oh. He did some westerns and he did some war movies.
I think if I...
To Hell and Back?
How do you spell Audie Murphy?
I think it's Audy.
Yeah, you know, my dad was super into like shoot 'em up Americana, you know.
So that's Dirty Harry for sure. Well, yeah, Clint Eastwood. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't say Dirty Harry because I actually liked Outlaw Josie Wales and Hang 'em High more than the police ones.
Yeah, I know that like I went and saw those with my dad. Like even the rated R stuff my dad would take me to because you can get into it. No children under 17 admitted without a parent. He was my parent. He would bring me in. And I loved it. And it was the only place that my dad and I really connected. So he was a math teacher, an introvert, we didn't connect on a lot of things. He did not understand my writing. He didn't understand any of that stuff, but he also didn't discourage it, but he didn't know how to talk to me. So we would watch action movies together, and it was super fun.
That is cool. So he was supportive in his way.
Yeah.
That's cool.
My mom was like my brother was like, I don't think he was quite valedictorian, but he was in the running, and he like went on to UCLA to be in a fraternity and like all that stuff. I went on to broadcasting school to be a DJ. 95.5 KLOS, and almost moved to Klamath Falls, Oregon.
Oh,
for a job.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
then I found out it was not an alternative station. It was a country station. And I'm like, I just don't think I can do that.
K Falls, there's not a lot down there. I know where it's at because I used to work for a company that has a store down there. That's probably one of the very few things down there.
Apparently there's a river.
There's a river. There's a lot of people that come over the border from California because there's no sales tax in Oregon. So that could be exciting.
Meeting people who want to avoid taxes.
Yes.
Sure. Yep.
Tax-free shopping.
My kind of people.
That's probably the only claim to fame that town has.
Yeah. Oh shoot, what was I saying?
I'm still thinking that having the DJ voice has to be pretty handy for comic effects at times.
Oh, it is so much fun. In fact, I was working on a movie with some friends of mine where I was doing the actual physical effects for this vampire movie. I had to squirt blood all over people. It was the coolest job I've ever had. And it was like the best set I've ever worked on, the coolest people that I've ever worked with, including my own stuff. So I think very highly of the Good Cops. That was, and what's funny is going back to Dirty Harry, I met them because they had a YouTube series that was basically like making fun of all of those kinds of characters. Like, you're a good cop, damn it. And it was so funny and so cleverly written and like just edited within an inch of its life, and it was directed so well. So I got to meet this director, Clayton Cogswell.
Wow.
Who is, just one of my favorite people. Cogswell Cogs was actually named after his grandfather.
Okay. That's a lot of pressure in a name.
Huh?
That's a lot of pressure in a name.
It is. But he and I are both have kind of that, both like my directing style. Like I really love Edgar Wright. Like swish pans and punch in, like your push ins and like all sorts of, camera movement and like people talking from off screen. And then we readjust to see that they're standing right there, and he is exactly the same way. Like, and we both talk in sound effects when we're directing. So it's like, we're going to be like, whoosh, like, and so we would have this talk and I'd be like, Clayton, are you going to shoot it like, and he's like, oh yeah. But we'd be on set and he would be stressed out because we were shooting a vampire movie for $50,000 in like the course of like 20 days or something like that. Not enough money, not enough time, typical indie movie stuff. And so he would look at me and he would say something. And I knew, by the way he said it, I was supposed to say it back in the movie guy voice. And so he'd be like, it might just be like set talk, like shots up in 5 minutes. And he'd look at me and go, shots up in 5 minutes. I go, shots up in 5 minutes. And it would make him just laugh so hard. So they actually had me record a voiceover for the trailer in that voice. And like Clayton just laughed and laughed and laughed. One of my gifts is I can make people laugh even in the toughest situations. So
that's therapy sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Right on.
I'm a good person to have working on your TV show.
Yes. Exactly. So what's up next for you?
What's up next?
You can do any Indiegogo's? Because it sounds like you've got a few that are prime candidates for something like an Indiegogo campaign.
I have a couple of ideas. So the thing about my YouTube stuff, this is probably the first time I've ever saying this out loud, but it's all it's like some of them, like we didn't even have $100 to make them. So it was like me and my buddy with like just a little DSLR camera and like maybe a reflector. But most of the time it was just like whatever was there. We'd shoot over the course of a day. So the lighting is very, very different. That's one of the things that I found that people don't notice that much or care about is lighting changes. You'll start noticing them once you like start editing and like, and you notice if you're in a wide, right, there'll be like, it'll be really nice shot, beautifully lit, and then you come in for the close-ups and now there's a lot more light on one side and it's all been sculpted around, and that's what we expect from a movie, but it is not consistent. So yeah, a lot of the YouTube stuff was super inconsistent, and like I call it like it is like the death of 1,000 cuts. If you go, nobody's gonna notice that. Nobody's gonna notice that. If you say that enough times, they're not gonna notice that, but they're gonna notice that you're not up to the level that that they consider it good.
So something's different, or something that they might think something's off, but they won't know what. I can see that. Yeah, to an untrained eye, to someone that doesn't know the logistics and what you do, I could see that being like, something's off with it, but I'm not sure what.
Yeah, it's like there's just so many corners cut that eventually, like, it just doesn't feel great and professional. And most of the stuff was, the whatever gear I could borrow, or like, can lights from Home Depot and stuff like that. So my next one, what I really, really want to do is nail down a really good short film script. I've got a couple of them in the pipe. And then like raise enough money to do it full union and like with real gear and all of that stuff, because now I need like a showpiece. Like I just did a short film with a couple of my friends that I directed. I didn't write it, but I directed it, called Girl Stuff, when I was living in Minnesota, and that's gone on to win a bunch of stuff. And we actually had like, a full-on lighting crew and things that I was like, what is that?
That's on Vimeo, right? Am I right about that? I think I went looking for it.
I'm not sure where it is right now. It's been doing a bunch of stuff at festivals, and then I think it's going to go live in January. That's what Tiffany said.
Okay.
One of the EPs.
Okay, I could be wrong then. But yeah, I went looking for it, and
it could be on Vimeo and I just don't know it.
It could not be, and I'm wrong about it. So either way.
It could be.
Hey, 50-50.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, yeah, that's a big project. Full union is significant.
Yeah. I'm not even sure what that would look at, but, like as far as budget goes, because most of my stuff has been independent. If anybody's union, it's the actors.
So would you film in LA, or would you look at like BC or another town that could be a little bit cheaper?
I would probably do it here, because I know I can like I have a loft that I can use at any time. So locations are always going to be like the thing, particularly when you live in Los Angeles. Everybody knows the deal, right? So they have like, oh, you need to call so-and-so. That's the person who deals with all of our film stuff. And that's when you know that it's going to cost a lot. You're like, oh, I can't afford this place. If they have a film person, I can't afford this place. So yeah, so I've always written like this. Robert Rodriguez, taking a page from his book, like literally, it's Rebel Without a Crew, to write stuff around what you have. So it's like, oh, I work in an office building, so I'm going to write an office thing. Or, my cousin owns a restaurant. I bet I can shoot there on some of their off hours. So, okay, I can shoot in a restaurant. I can do all these things. And though I'd really love to shoot the pilot for Overeater. Because I think if people see it, they can really connect with it, like particularly execs and stuff like that. Seeing it on the page versus actually like watching something can be really good. But then it can also be like, they'll be like, oh, that's not how I would have done it at all. And like, but that's okay. That's not the person you want to work with.
Funny how things work themselves out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you for joining me and sharing all your insider info and tricks of the trade.
Thanks. This is really fun. I'd love to do it again if you need. It's just fun chatting.
Yeah.
So.
If you have any projects, any Indiegogo's or anything I can support, let me know and send me the pages for Overeater.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I will.
Right on.
All right.